The last one of excuses Christians are making for the genocidal video that I posted yesterday. This one is the final one. And my guy says, that's why the Prince of Peace was sent. He came in, preached peace, the light, and the light he sent here to live and die as a man, only son, sacrifice for us. Sir, as with the video I talked about the genocide, the New Testament would have been a great opportunity for your Jesus character to actually denounce the Old Testament God. But instead of denouncing the Old Testament God, your Jesus said, I and the Father are one. That if you have seen me, then you have seen the Father. That everything that I do at the behest of the Father. So for those others who are saying that Jesus, God, New Testament God, Old Testament God, two different beings, your Jesus is saying that they the same. Now, I do understand that there are teachings that differ from the Old Testament to the New Testament, certain teachings that differ. But then there are those that do not differ. You say that your God, that Jesus came and he preached light? Not necessarily. Because in, I believe it's Matthew or Mark, it says that they asked, what's the greatest commandment? And he said, to love the Father and keep his commandments. What were those commandments? Those are the law of the Old Testament. So therefore, sir, your Jesus is not taking away from the genocidal narcissistic maniac to which your deity says that if children disobey their parents, murder them. Your Jesus is not taking away chattel slavery, that if you may take the foreigners, Leviticus, you may take the foreigners from amongst you and make them into your slaves, and you may pass them down to the next generation as property. Your book says that. Old Testament law. So it does not take away those things. Jesus is not taking away those things. Y'all grossly misunderstand this Jesus character. This Jesus character in this popular mythos of dying for your sins is actually him saying, I'm dying for you at the point where when you are at judgment, I will advocate for you, but you are still to maintain the old. Why am I saying that's a popular motif, I should say? When you look at the Book of the Dead, when you study the Kemetic story, one of the things you will find out is that, and they differ a little bit depending upon different characters at different time frames and different dynasties, but they all have the same thing. At the point of death, you have to go through the process of knowing what spells to cast to get past all the situations. And then once you finally get to where your heart is going to be measured against the feather of Mayat, and you have the 42 confessions, it's either Seth or Horus who comes and advocates for you, who takes on the weight of your heart that makes it heavier than a feather, so that you can then go into the field of reeds in the underworld and live with Asar. If you're looking at an older version, it is Horus, so that you can go and live in with with Anubis, sorry. And I said Set the other time, but I meant Anubis or Horus advocates for you. Whether it's Horus who advocates for you right then at the scales, or it's Anubis who sits in the council and advocates for you, but they are advocating to take on your sins so that you can then, your heart will be lighter than a feather and you can go into the field of reeds. Sounds very familiar, right? Same story. So even though it's not exactly they died for your sins, they are advocating for you at the point of judgment. So you are therefore still are held accountable for all the laws and all the genocide and all the narcissistic stuff and all of those things, because that's still the same deity, the same God. Jesus believed in the same God of the Old Testament. So you can try to separate them because it's a good story and it sounds right, and the Old Testament just doesn't jive to your culture today. And as I've always said, it is not the Bible that is driving culture, but culture that is driving the Bible. Once you understand that, you might be able to let it go, because you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is not negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.